Dava Jaya Jadi Hari Gopi Jana Vallabha Varadari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaya Dhari Yashodanand Vrajajanai Ranjanam Yashodanam Danam Vrajajanai Ranjanam Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hey, Prabhu, so I think it's was number 39 today, I think so. I remember Damadla Mataji giving a lecture on verse number 38 last week, if I'm not wrong. There's an October.
I thought Balanita, I checked on Facebook, Balanita Prabhu seemed to give it on 37, but we can give on 39.
Yes, Prabhu, that will be.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutirayet. Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is celebrated, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire from material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his message, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay, so We are continuing our reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 9, the passing away of Bhishma Deva, text 39. Vijayarata kudumbata totre dritahaya rashminita shriya kshanye bhagavati ratirastu me mumurshor yamiha nirikshaha tagata swarupam. Vijayarata kudumba atta totre dritahaya rashminita Chiriyekshaniye Bhagavati ratirastu me mumurshor Yamiha niriksha hatagata swarupam. Vijayarata kudumba atatotre Dritahaya rashminitach Chiriyekshaniye Bhagavati ratirastu me mumurshor Yamiha niriksha hatagata swarupam. Anyone would like to read?
Sure, Prabhu. I can get a chance, Prabhu. Vijaya Ratha Kutumbam Attatotre. Is it this one, Prabhu, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Vijaya Ratha Kutumbam Attatotre Dritahaya Rasminitakshiye Shaniye Bhagavati Ratir Astumemur Bhagavati Ratir Astumemurshor Yamiha Nirikshayaha Tagatha Swarupam.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I can read.
Please.
Vijayaratha Kutumba Attatotre Dritahaya Rasmini Tach Chriye Kshaniye Bhagavati Ratir Astu Me Mumurshor Yam Iha Niriksha Hatagada Swarupam. Hare Krishna.
Jai Prabhuji, thank you. Okay. Vijaya, Arjuna, Rata, chariot, Kutumbe, the object of protection at all risk. Attatotre, with a whip in the right hand. Dritahaya, controlling the horses. Rashmini, ropes. Tatshriya, beautifully standing. Ikshaniye, to look at. Bhagavati, unto the personality of Godhead. Ratihi, astu, let my attraction be. Mumursho, one who is about to die. Yam, upon whom, iha, in this world, niriksha, by looking, hataha, those who died, gataha, attained, swarupam, original form. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. Purport. A pure devotee of the Lord constantly sees the presence of the Lord within himself because of being transcendentally related by loving service. Such a pure devotee cannot forget the Lord for a moment. This is called trance. The mystic yogi tries to concentrate upon the supersoul by controlling the senses from all other engagements, and thus he ultimately attains samadhi. A devotee more easily attains samadhi or trance by constantly remembering the Lord's personal feature along with his holy name, fame, pastimes, etc. Therefore, the concentration of the mystic yogi and that of the devotee are not on the same level. The concentration of the mystic is mechanical, whereas that of the pure devotee is natural in pure love and spontaneous affection. Bhishma Deva was a pure devotee, and as a military marshal, he constantly remembered the battlefield feature of the Lord as Partha Sarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. Therefore, the Lord's pastime as Partha Sarathi is also eternal. The pastimes of the Lord, beginning from his birth at the prison house of Kamsa up to the Moshala Leela at the end, all move one after another in all the universes, just as the clock hand moves from one point to another. And in such pastimes, his associates like the Pandavas and Bhishma are constant eternal companions. So Bhishma Deva never forgot the beautiful feature of the Lord as Partha Sarathi, which even Arjuna could see. Arjuna was behind the beautiful Partha Sarathi, while Bhishma Deva was just in front of the Lord. As far as the military feature of the Lord is concerned, Bhishma Deva observed this with more relish than Arjuna. All the soldiers and persons on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original spiritual form like the Lord after their death, because by the causeless mercy of the Lord, they were able to see him face to face on that occasion. The conditioned souls rotating in the evolutionary cycle from the aquatics up to the form of Brahma are all in the form of Maya, or the form obtained by one's own actions and awarded by material nature. The material forms of the conditioned souls are all foreign dresses, and when the conditioned soul becomes liberated from the clutches of material energy, he attains his original form. The impersonalist wants to attain the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord, but that is not at all congenial to the living sparks, parts, and parcels of the Lord. Therefore, the impersonalists again fall down and get material forms, which are all false to the spirit soul. A spiritual form like the Lord's, either two-handed or four-handed, is attained by the devotees of the Lord either in the Vaikunthas or in the Goloka planet, according to the original nature of the soul. This form, which is cent% spiritual, is the Swarupa of the living being. And all the living beings who participated on the battlefield of Kurukshetra on both sides attained their Swarupa, as confirmed by Bhishma Deva. So Lord Krishna was not merciful only to the Pandavas. He was also merciful to the other parties because all of them attained the same result. Bhishma Deva wanted the same facility also, and that was his prayer to the Lord. Although his position as an associate of the Lord is assured in all circumstances, the conclusion is that whoever dies looking on the personality of Godhead, within or without, attains his Swarupa, which is the highest perfection of life. We'll read the verse in Sanskrit and English again. Vijayarata Kudumba Atta Totre Trita Haya Rashmini Tach Triyekshaniye Bhagavati Ratir Astu Me Mumursho Yamiha Nirikshaha Tagata Swarupam. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attain their original forms after death. Before beginning, I'd like to offer obeisances to my spiritual teachers and the Vaishnavas present. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. My spiritual master is opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer him my respectful obeisances. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapatantikam. When will Sri Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established on earth the mission and desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, grant me shelter at his lotus feet? Vansha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhyaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who are exactly like desired trees, capable of satisfying the desires of all living entities. Thus they are very naturally compassionate for all conditioned souls. Dear devotees, if you would like to offer me your blessing so that I may say something, it will be both beneficial to you and me. It's very nice to see everyone today. Thank you for taking time to sit with me for some time and with the Bhagavatam this morning. We're all very fortunate to have desired at least a little bit of taste to listen to Bhagavatam today. There's one more prayer that I'm trying to learn. It's very nice. It goes like this. It's from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Katanchana smrite yasmin dushkaram sukaram bhavet. Vismrite viparitam syat Sri Chaitanyam namami tam. It means things that are very difficult to do become easy to execute if one somehow or other simply remembers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But if one does not remember him, even easy things become very difficult. To this Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I offer my respectful obeisances. This chapter began with the battlefield of Kurukshetra ending, and the devotees led by Yudhishthir Maharaj and the Supreme Personality of Godhead also led by Yudhishthir Maharaj approached the place where Sri Bhishma Deva was lying on a bed of arrows. He had been lying there for quite some time, but everyone knows he has a boon to leave his body when he desires. When he began speaking, he was glorifying Krishna, but also speaking very spontaneously about the nature of the world, how time is an inscrutable, very difficult to understand force of nature. He was saying, how is it possible that the Pandavas, who are the greatest devotees of the Lord, and Kunti, were put into such difficulty, despite being such close associates of the Lord? And so Bhishma Deva is saying, it must be time. It must be the inscrutable wheel of time that's putting us all in these very difficult situations, very difficult to understand situations. And then Yudhishthir Maharaj asks Bhishma Deva, because he's a Mahajan, not only in the context of the cosmos is he an enlightened soul that has all knowledge of Dharma within his heart, but he's also in their family, the patriarch. And they know that he's leaving his body. And so Yudhishthir, being the son of Yamaraj and being, Dharmaraj personified, wants to know, what are the principles of religion? And who's a better authority than you? So he asks Bhishma Deva. And what's funny is that in the Mahabharata, this takes a whole chapter. Bhishma Deva speaking about religion and all the minutiae of like activities between people and how to behave in the world. This takes like a whole chapter. But in the Bhagavatam, it's just briefly gone over. They say, oh, Bhishmadev talked about this and that and the other. But what it really expands on is Bhishmadev's devotion to Krishna, which the Mahabharata just very briefly touches on. Which is something special about the Puranas. The Puranas are all about the exact same thing, but because they're written to different audiences, they extract a different part from it. And we know that the Bhagavatam is for Nirmat Saranam Satam. It's for people who are pure at heart. And so for them, it's giving them just, the nectar of love that devotees feel for Krishna. And so we're at this part now where Bhishmadeva has already spoken about the minutiae of material activities, but he's directing his consciousness ever more towards Parthasarathi, the Lord of his heart. Prabhupada describes in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna enjoys being referred to by names that connect him with his devotees. So Parthasarathi is the name that's connecting him to Arjuna. Why it's important, or why these names are more intimate, is because they start expanding on the nature of God. For example, when we say Bhagavan, as Parashara Muni says, Bhagavan is the person who possesses 6 opulences, right? So we know the person that we're referring to is very strong, is very intelligent, is very beautiful, is very renounced, is very rich, and is very famous. But just how much money does he have? We don't know. We just know all of it. What does he do with the money? We don't know. He's the most intelligent, but what does he know? I don't know anything. It knows more than me. Is very famous. Well, we know that there's 3 planetary systems. So, but do you see that it's not very specific? It's a general. It's a principle. Bhagavan is a principle. But now, if you say something like Govinda, what does Go mean? Go means the senses, and it also means the cows. Oh, I have senses. So now that name is also relating to me. Yeah, I have money, but how much money do I have in the bank? It's not really worth comparing to Bhagavan. But I have senses, and I'm very aware of my senses. I'm so intimately connected with my senses. And Govinda is the person who is pleasing to the senses. So I have a relationship with Govinda. Wonderful. But I might not always see myself as a devotee. And sometimes my senses, because they're not purified, are interested in not spiritual things. And so that's still very difficult for me to see. But what if I call him Parthasarathi? So who's Partha? He's the son of Pritha. So who's Pritha? And Sarathi, why is he driving the chariot? And suddenly from this name of Krishna, we learn who Arjuna is. And we learn that Arjuna is a soul who's in relationship with Krishna in Sakya Rasa, in the rasa of friendship. He's Krishna's cousin. First cousin, like a brother. And right now he's on this battlefield where Arjuna is having to fight other members of his family. And he didn't want to, because Prabhupada said he has such a naturally soft heart, which is the quality of the devotees. But Krishna is inspiring him to do this. Why is Krishna inspiring him to do this materially heinous thing? Oh, it's because it's Arjuna's nature. And Krishna is also using this opportunity to teach the Bhagavad Gita. So now, and because I can't remember the verse, but it says that by Krishna speaking Arjuna, the Bhagavad Gita, he delivered the entire world. And I just think that's so nice that just by having a conversation with his friend, God saved the whole world. And now I think, and I am a recipient of the Gita. I am a person that needs to be enlightened like the Gita. So this is a good position for me to be in. I can't identify as a devotee yet because my senses aren't spiritualized, but I can identify as a conditioned soul who who has been graciously given the Bhagavad Gita. So this is what's so special about God's name. Srila Prabhupada mentions here in the first chapter, in the first paragraph, a devotee more easily attains samadhi or trance by constantly remembering the Lord's personal feature, along with his holy name, fame, pastimes, etc. So when we remember Partha Sarati, which is the name, the fame happens after that. Oh, the battlefield of Kurukshetra, only the most famous battle on earth, where demigods were appearing in royal families and demons also, and it was a fight for Middle Earth. It's like the original Lord of the Rings. The original battle for Middle Earth was happening in Kurukshetra. And it was to tip the scales, Burloka, or this middle planetary system, was being fought for, because whatever is the dominant characteristic or the dominant attitude of the souls on this planetary system, the whole balance of the universe leans towards that favor. So if you have primarily, Brahminical culture, where you have people that are understanding that we're actually souls in material bodies, and the purpose of life is to learn who God is, who I am, and what our relationship is, then everything tilts towards suric, divine qualities. But if you have, people on earth not knowing who they are, and that, everything is about just building really nice toys that let us manipulate the earth, then everything leans towards an asuric mentality. So the fame of the Bhagavad Gita and the Battle of Kurukshetra appears, and then the pastimes. I mean, we're just reading about Krishna made a vow, right? Krishna made a vow that he appeared to Duryodhana and to Arjuna and said, one of you can have me, and one of you can have my army. And Duryodhana was like, army, let's go, let's get the army. And Arjuna was like, yes, Krishna, I'll take you. 100 times out of 100, I'll take you. So we know that. And then we know that Krishna also vowed not to fight. But this story about Bhishma Deva is so important, because it's mentioned that there was a time where Bhishma Deva, driven by his desire to see Krishna fight, Bhishma is feeling the mood of chivalry mixed with other things, but he sees Krishna in a chivalrous attitude. And so the person that he loves the most, Krishna, reaches his fullest form when he's on the battlefield, but all he was doing was driving Arjuna's chariot. So he's not like the person that Bhishma wants to see fully yet. Bhishma wanted to see him fight. And since Bhishma was the most powerful person in the battlefield, he's like, I gotta do this. I gotta get Krishna to fight. But I know that he'll never fight, just because I want him to necessarily. He made a promise. So I have to get him to break his promise somehow. And the only way he's going to do it is if I threaten the life of his devotee, Arjuna. And so one day, Bhishma decided to attack Arjuna more intensely than any day before. He said, one of two things are going to happen. I'm going to kill Arjuna, or Krishna's going to break his promise. Imagine. And so he goes and mercilessly attacks Arjuna. And Krishna's driving the chariot and trying to get him to dodge it. And he realizes it's like, it won't work unless I get in there. And so Krishna gets off of the chariot and lifts one of the broken wheels up like his Sudarshan chakra and is about to approach Bhishma, and Arjuna's like grabbing him. No, don't do it. And then we've all seen the picture. Bhishma's just like so happy that, Krishna's hair is covered in dust and there's transcendental blood coming from his body. And that's his pastime. That's this wonderful pastime. And we think, how is it possible that the body of God can bleed? But we've all seen plays and movies where, the hero gets shot by a gun and we know it's a fake gun, but there's a team of people behind the scenes that's making like a fake bullet that explodes because it's going to augment the drama, And Krishna is like that. The Upanishads describe Brahma as the person who has nothing to do. Brahma has nothing to do because Brahman is Atmarama. He's the pinnacle of Atmarama. He's totally self-satisfied. So there's nothing outside of Krishna for him to do because he's everything. But because the parts of Krishna really, really want to show him their love for him, they want to express, they want to manifest some interchange. Krishna says, okay, so you can treat me as a friend, you can treat me as a lover, you can treat me as a soldier. And so to create this wonderful pastime, Krishna allows blood to appear on his skin so that Bhishma can feel like, oh, I got him. But Prabhupada describes in one of these verses that it was really just like a lover exchanging a flower with another lover. Krishna was showing that he was receiving what Bhishma was giving him. That's about my level of understanding. These things are very, very intimate, but we should, for example, we offer Krishna food and we don't think that's weird, right? Because we eat all the time. So we're like, oh, of course, Krishna has to eat because it's like, I won't be able to take any prasad if Krishna doesn't eat. But we're not soldiers. So when we hear about Krishna getting shot with an arrow and accepting that arrow, we think, oh, that's weird. But it's the same thing. Krishna is the source of all food, so he doesn't need to eat in the same way that Krishna is the source of all the blood in our body and all the knowledge that is used to create arrows. So it's the same thing. Bhishma Dev offering his arrows in love and us offering, gulab jamun in love. It's the same thing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is accepting food and eating and then saying he's so full. How is Krishna full? He's full because of the love of his devotees. And this is what the Bhagavatam is ultimately trying to give us. It's trying to give us examples of his devotees' love, of the devotees' love for Krishna. It's trying to give us examples of names. How many names of Krishna are in the Bhagavatam? It's giving us examples, right? Like when you want to, I went to school to study creative writing. So before I was allowed to write my own book, I had to read a lot of people and see, well, what did other people do who were writers? And then I get to see both the techniques that people use to write. So I learned a lot of how to edit a poem. So, there's a whole book that's just about editing. And a whole chapter is about a writer says, oh, on so-and-so day, I saw a beautiful flower and I wrote these lines. And then I left the Word document on my computer for 10 years. And then one day I was bored and I looked at it and I changed it around, and here's this poem. And another, and another. And so you learn the techniques of how to edit. And then you also you read authors talking about themselves. And they say, oh, I wrote this book because there was a war happening. And I wanted to write something that would address the war and would inspire people to look for peace and love. And so you learn about the motivations. And then you hear the results. Oh, once people like this book, I realized that's not the message I wanted to convey. And so I did something else. So we get the same thing from Bhagavatam. We learn the techniques. How are devotees doing what they're doing, right? We hear of so many austerities, for example. Brahma, before he's given the capacity to create the universe, he hears Krishna say, tapa. And so he's like, all right. And he stays for how long meditating? And then Krishna appears to him and congratulates him and then gives him the power to create the material universes. I heard recently that there's a devotee who, one of his favorite pastimes is what Krishna said to Brahma. Krishna said to Brahma, don't be depressed and don't be anxious. What you are desiring has been given many times before. So how many Brahmas have come before, right? So he's telling Brahma, don't be anxious. Like whatever you want, I've given to people already. And that should also, mean something to us that like, we want to have happy families. We want to be productive in life. And ultimately, we want to be devotees. And all those things have been given by Krishna to other souls. Happy families have come before. members of humanity that have been productive to other people have come before, and Krishna Prema Bhakti has been given to people before. This isn't the first time that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared, so it's like, we're not asking for something that Krishna can't give. So we learn the techniques in Bhagavatam, and then we also hear the examples of devotees attaining their love, and so we get an example of, well, where am I? What am I qualified to practice? What part of this person's life do I identify with most? What devotee inspires me the most to practice? What devotee is really teaching me about who Krishna is in a way that I can understand? Now, because Vyasadeva is an incarnation of God, he's systematically revealing the Bhagavatam to us. We should all be able to pick up from the first verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya Yataha. So everything that exists came from a person. We should all be able to follow that logically, right? Oh, he's directly and indirectly conscious. Even sages and demigods are put into confusion. I've been put into confusion. I can relate with them, not with the genius of the demigods, but with the foolishness and the ability to be confused. And so, like Prabhupada says, if you follow it verse by verse, canto by canto, by the time you arrive at the 10th canto to Krishna's smiling face, you will be a self-realized soul. So that's what we're here to do. One more thing is that he says, Srila Prabhupada says, Lord Krishna was not merciful only to the Pandavas. He was also merciful to the other parties because all of them attained the same result. Krishna can do many things at a time. One pastime that illustrates this point to me in my mind now is that when Sri Brahma stole the calves and the cowherd boys, Krishna was required to figure it out on his own. And so he expanded himself into all the cows or the calves and cowherd boys, which when Krishna was born, when Krishna arrived in Vrindavan and all the gopis saw Jashoda Nandana, they thought, this is the most beautiful child I've ever seen. I wish I had a child like this. But there's no other child like Krishna. There's no other person like Krishna. So, 7 years later, when Brahma steals the cowherd boys, Krishna satisfies that desire by expanding into all of the cowherd boys and being the child of all those gopis. So Krishna's like that. He does so many things at once. And it's not that, we just, and I've been hearing this recently, is that we don't have the vision that Krishna has of eternity. Like we hear that, oh, very quickly you will attain devotional service. And very quickly for us is like next week, like next month. That's very quickly for us. But very quickly in Krishna's eye, like Brahma disappeared for a second. And that was a year in Krishna's life. So it's very difficult to know what Krishna's time is. What we should take away from that is Krishna's promise. That's what we should take. We shouldn't care so much about the time, but we should care. Krishna is Satya Sankalpa. What he desires will come to pass. And my job, or my swarupa is to be a devotee. Oh, it looks like the internet cut out for a bit. Okay. So I guess that's how long Krishna wants me to speak on this subject. So we'll leave it with that. Let me see. Let me see if I can leave and join again. Hare Krishna. My computer
Word
did.
sama. As you know, the word
Oops.
sin.
So my computer is doing something it's never done. It's kind of breaking it. Can anyone hear me? Am I audible?
Hey, Shubhi, we can hear it, Prabhu.
Okay. So I think I'll leave there. I think I'll leave off at that point. And if anyone has any, anything to add to that, or any feedback.
We are not hearing you.
Thank you. Nothing I said? Okay. Well, I was saying, if anyone else has any comments or feedback, feel free to share. Okay. His Holiness Romapad Swami is in town. It's a very fortunate time that we all have to be close and listen to the words of a soul that's dedicated their life to Krishna service. He'll be giving a class on the Ramayana at around 11:30. The